I'm Markia.
Want to hear something scary?
Don't fall asleep. Yusuf had always been a restless sleeper, even as a baby. Now as a teenager, he couldn't remember the last time he slept through the night. The tossing and turning eventually grew to insomnia, and his mother decided to get him some help. The doctor's prescription would not only ensure Yusuf fell asleep easily, but he'd be able to stay asleep and hopefully get the 8 or so hours he needed. A literal dream come true, as she would no longer be so concerned about the giant bags under his eyes or his constant fatigue. The night after they'd been to the doctor, around 10 p.m., Yusuf swallowed his little green pill, and within 15 minutes, his eyes grew heavy and his body let go of all tension. He climbed into bed, hopeful. His eyes closed and he drifted away. After a time, he fell into the REM cycle and began to dream. He started seeing strange, dark images, an ominous shadow following as he walked. Tree limbs grabbed at him as he passed by, eerie noises fast on his heels, the makings of one of his normal nightmares. These scary scenes felt familiar to him, so he consciously told himself to wake up and pinched himself on the arm, which usually did the trick. But he was stuck. As he ran down a dark alley, his realization sent him into a full panic. He had to wake up. Right about now was usually when his eyes would typically open, his body jerking awake. But because of the medication, he couldn't. He was now trapped in this nightmarish purgatory. His heart raced as the shadowy creature crept behind him. As it emerged, Yusuf could see its bony, skeletal appearance, and his eyes bulged in fear. He knew right away it was a jinn, remembering his Baba telling him of the beast from Turkish folklore. The jinn would sit on your arms and chest, covering your mouth, and would strangle you in your sleep. Murderous sleep paralysis. Yusuf reminded himself it was just a dream, as the skeletal monstrosity inched closer. A human skull rested on its neck, the mandible barely held together with no more than an inch of flesh and tendon. It had no eyes, yet it still held an unearthly glow in the pits of where they should have been, with twin black and yellow trails leaking out of the holes. He could read the hungry expression in its sockets as it looked directly at him. It reached out a bony finger to trail curiously down Yusuf's plump cheek, its flesh burning cold to the touch. Yusuf's eyes darted around in a panic, but the situation was inescapable. He'd never gotten this far into the nightmare. Perhaps this was the reason for his insomnia. He looked down at his watch, which he prayed was showing the correct time. In reality, it read 6:59 a.m. Just as the creature grabbed Yusuf, pulling him closer, Yusuf's alarm went off. Thank heavens. He jolted awake in his bed, but he was struck with secondary terror. Despite being awake, he was unable to move any part of his head or body at all. Lying there, it dawned on him he was still in the clutches of the beast. And there it was, the jinn's skeletal hand pinning his shoulder down. It leaned forward, just as Yusuf tried and failed to scream. It pressed into his throat with its bony hands, cutting off all air. Yusuf desperately wanted to claw at the beast to get away, but he was paralyzed. After minutes of excruciating pain, Yusuf's body surrendered. The jinn disappeared, leaving no trace. Another soul claimed. When Yusuf's mother opened the door to his room an hour later, she saw her son's lifeless body, his bloodshot eyes bulging open, frozen in place. The coroner would rule it an adverse reaction to the sleeping pills. But the truth is, if it weren't for the pill that kept Yusuf in a sleeping state, the jinn never would have had the opportunity to fully emerge and take his life. Rather than help Yusuf, the sleeping aid had helped the jinn to its dark dealings.